Let's talk about European genetic superpowers. There are some objective biological differences between Europeans and other races of humans. To make a little disclaimer, intelligence is definitely not one of them. I expect comments about the bell curve and IQ from racist neckbeards, and my response to them is such: IQ is not a valid measure of intelligence. Pattern recognition may be something Europeans and East Asians excel at for various reasons, but other types of intelligence, especially emotional intelligence, are arguably a lot more important for success in life. Using arguments about poverty in various regions of the world to argue that some people are superior or inferior is not only in bad taste, but also completely untrue. The ability to colonize is the primary driving factor behind European technological advancement and success. The factors that contribute most to early rise of cultures in and around the Mediterranean is mainly driven by early adoption of agriculture, which resulted from advantageous climatic conditions and had nothing to do with these people's mental qualities. In short, Europe's climate, location, and political decisions are behind European ability to colonize other places, not their superior intelligence or any other sort of genetic superiority. So let's get that out of the way. Now let's take a look at some of the facts about Europeans and discuss our genetic superpowers as well as our weaknesses. Talking about superpowers, let's start with schizophrenia. The rate of schizophrenia in people of European descent is around 4 times less than among other ethnic groups, in particular Sub Saharan Africans, who have the highest rates. The rate of psychotic experiences without a schizophrenia diagnosis is also much lower in whites than among other ethnic groups. DRD2 and ANKK1 are 2 genes which also happen to be located right next to each other, majorly implicated in the risk of schizophrenia. Examining allele frequencies in such variations as Pro, phenantine Pro, you will find that those alleles that contribute to a higher risk of schizophrenia have much lower frequencies among various European populations. For example, in Pro, phenantine Pro, the group with the highest frequency of the derived allele, or the allele that protects from schizophrenia, is 59% among Spaniards, but only 5% among the Japanese and only 14% among African Americans. So in short, Europeans are resistant to schizophrenia. This is one of our superpowers. Moving on. Another European superpower is our ability to tolerate processed milk. Processed milk lacks the lactase enzyme which is necessary for digestion, and most people in the world do not produce this enzyme naturally. However, almost every Northern European does. In the MCM6 gene, the allele encoding lactose persistence is either entirely or partially dominant over the ancestral allele. A C. Pope study from northern Sweden found that 94% of native Swedes have either 1 or 2 variants for lactose persistence in MCM6 and are lactose persistent. East Asians and Sub-Saharan Africans completely lack this allele. Moving on. Another European genetic superpower is resistance to pain. Examining relevant variations in COMT, a gene implicated in dopamine breakdown, shows that the alleles encoding for higher pain tolerance peak in Europe. The only exception to this general rule is actually the VAL-MET variation, or the warrior gene, where the allele for higher resistance of pain is actually lowest in Europeans. Moving on to warrior versus warrior. The warrior alleles in both COMT and MAOA genes peak in European populations. The implications of this is that in general, Europeans are better at paying attention and motivating themselves, but are worse at tolerating stress. This is just a generality. There are plenty of Europeans with warrior genotype, and there are plenty of non-Europeans with the warrior genotype. Europeans are also blessed with better eyesight. Indians are 10 times more likely than whites to develop myopia. East Asians are over 4 times more likely than whites to develop myopia. Sub-Saharan Africans are 10 times more likely than whites to develop myopia, according to 2010 study. Every major allele that protects from myopia peaks in Europeans. You can probably see the irony in me presenting these facts with my glasses on. Yes, to every generality you will find a lot of exceptions, but it is still a generality, it is still a statistical fact. Europeans are also somewhat resistant to the HIV virus. Europeans infected with HIV have lower viral loads, longer incubation period relative to other ethnicities. Variations in CCR5 are implicated in HIV resistance, RS333 being the variation with the highest weight. The frequency of the protective allele is 25% among the Danish, keep that in mind, 1/4, meaning that close to half of the Danes carry either 1 or 2 protective alleles. In non-European ethnicities, the protective allele is not found at all. It has been previously suggested that the delta 32 allele may have been selected for in European populations because it confers resistance to plague or the Black Death. Nonetheless, it is a fact that Europeans are resistant to HIV compared to other ethnicities of the world. Now let's talk about some of the genetic shortcomings of Europeans, which there are some to discuss. Number one thing to talk about here is hemochromatosis, also known as the Celtic curse. Risk variants for hemochromatosis are pretty much exclusively found in Europeans, although even among Northwest Europeans where they peak, they are pretty rare. Testicular and breast cancers both peak in Europeans. Every risk variant for testicular cancer in the KIT-G gene peaks in Europeans. Africans have the lowest frequencies, and the East Asians' allele frequencies in relevant variations are intermediate between the Africans and the Europeans. The KIT-G gene is implicated in some other things, such as the color of skin and hair. The variations relevant to coloring, ironically, also play a role in testicular cancer risk, with variants leading to lighter coloring also contributing to higher odds of testicular cancer. Setting aside all the super rare diseases, let's talk about something very common: skin cancer. Skin cancer is the most common type of cancer among Europeans. Our skin is light and unprotected from the sun. Those Europeans with darker skin, folks from Greece or Turkey, are a little bit more protected than Northerners, such as Brits or the Finnish. Once again, every variant that increases the odds of skin cancer is most frequent in Europeans. Finally, let's talk about multiple sclerosis, MS. The most relevant gene for this condition is the HLA gene. Looking at the variations with the highest effect, or odds ratio, the DRA variation of HLA, you will see the risk allele frequency at 25% among the Danish, 8% among the Spanish, and pretty much 0 among all non-European ethnicities. The data for all of these allele frequencies is from DBSNP. This pattern you will observe with every relevant variant in the HLA gene, with Northern Europeans having the highest frequency of the risk allele, and non-Europeans not really having any. In the United States, multiple sclerosis is most common in whites and least common in Hispanics. Well, that pretty much sums up the video. Thanks for watching until the end. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Consider commenting what you found interesting, or what you may want to add. Perhaps there is something you want me to add that I did not say in the video, so leave that in the comments. Thanks for watching, goodbye.